It's not every day that a stock goes up over 50% in one session, but today it happened. We'll have the 411 for you on the Rebel's Edge. Bang!
There it is. And I'll tell you what, I love that backdrop, man. The CBOE coming through for us, huh? It looks really, really good back there. You even got a little CBOE right behind your left shoulder there. It's not bad.
That's right. God bless them, Pete. Yeah, the CBOE Global Markets, CBO Global Markets, I guess they go by. And boy, volumes and profits and all that kind of stuff, looking pretty good.
Not so bad.
Well, he is Pete Najarian, folks. I'm Jon Najarian. As Pete said, I'm a guest here on the CBO Global Markets. I'm always tempted to say Chicago Board Option Exchange. That was the original name.
30 years.
But yeah, but they're global now, Pete. Truly global. They've got exchanges in Tokyo and in Amsterdam and London, all over the place. But anyway, Pete and I give you guys our take on Macro Minute, Fantastic Futures, at least 4 stocks every day, and a little bit of sports. And I'm sure Pete's got a lot to say about all of that. So we're going to get started right now. I'm going to start off with Pete, the Goldilocks jobs report last week, which was weak enough that maybe it gives the Fed a little wiggle room to try to get something done in terms of when they might move up to a cutting stance rather than a flat stance. What do you say?
Yeah, I think you're right, John. I mean, they got to get a little bit more information. Obviously, the pause has been there, but everybody started talking about, hey, maybe some hikes. And all of a sudden, Powell's like, whoa, slow your jets on that whole thing on the hikes. But are we going to get back to cuts? Right now, John, it looks like the best potential out there might be September. So that's something I think that a lot of folks can at least agree upon, maybe a cut in September. For me, John, right now, the Macro Minute, I'm looking at earnings season, and it just continues on and on and on and on and on. I mean, just this week, how about this? Disney, Spirit, Tyson, Lucid, Uber, Lyft, Reddit, Celsius, Palantir, and the list goes on. So I'm going to say that the macro right now is based upon what we're seeing for earnings, especially because it's a bit of a light week for data right now.
Yeah, it sure could be, Pete. And Palantir, that would be one of my picks. In fact, for that little show that you and I do with Wealthy on, that is my pick for this week. I know they've got earnings coming up, and I think they're going to be good, Pete, because of AI and because, they're one of the people that can really basically data mine, if you will, that all that data that you need to make AI work for you. All right, let's talk about fantastic futures.
Always good.
Well, fantastic futures, Pete, I'm going to say are Bitcoin. And earlier in the session, it was Bitcoin futures to the upside because we went through 65,000. Now we're barely holding on to 63 and we're down on the day. So it's a lot of volatility over there in Bitcoin world, Pete.
I'm interested a little bit right now. I don't know if it's sustainable, John, but we're seeing a little bit of a lift from gold. Now, gold, if you remember, went all the way up over 2,400. Then it pulled back over 100 points. And now, once again, starting to get a little bit of a lift to the upside. It's only up maybe 1% today, but somewhere close to 23.30. I think it's worth kind of keeping on, a little bit of an eye anyway on some of these, whether it's gold or silver or nat gas, copper, you take it. Whatever one you want to pick. But I think it's a good idea just to keep an eye on some of these to see what's going on. Cocoa actually had a little bit of a pullback as well. So there's a few things going on within the markets that are not necessarily stocks, but certainly can affect the markets themselves.
And we will keep our eye on that and report it back for you guys. Let's talk about Perficient, Pete, because this is a tech consultancy out of St. Louis, Missouri. And Bloomberg, to give them credit, started talking about this on April 29th, that they might be considering a deal. Well, they're getting a deal, a $3 billion deal, and that's why the stock is up like 54% so far today, Pete.
Yeah, and Proficient's an interesting one, John, because it's not anywhere close to its even 52-week highs on this takeout, but it's been up and down. It's been moving around a little bit, and they've made some decisions. And this private equity acquisition, I find to be really, really interesting, because the group that's doing it, this EQT, they really are going after a lot of different companies over the last couple of months, call it maybe even a couple of years, but just building themselves up a little bit. And I think Perficient sort of probably fits in pretty well with what they're trying to do going forward. They're also one of those that really embraced AI early. So I think it's something interesting to keep an eye on. This isn't EQT like a lot of people know. This is actually the private equity firm that just put up $3 billion cash just to say, you know what, we'll take you now. And they did.
Yeah, and they're probably the reason people pay that much of a premium, folks, is they don't want to wake up a sleeping giant that all of a sudden decides, wait a minute, they're only paying a 30% premium and it's this far from the 52-week high, like Pete said. They're stealing it. We should get in there and outbid them. You get in there and bid 58% over the closing price, you're going to get it 9 times out of 10, Pete.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Freshpet, because they unexpectedly swung to a profit in the first quarter. Now, lower logistic costs were one reason, but they came out with earnings that were positive rather than the big loss that they had a year ago. They lost 52 cents a year ago, folks. They made 21 cents this quarter. And I'm thinking Pete's probably going to go back to his favorite, the short interest, which is quite high in this name.
Yeah, that's always an interesting one to go to, John. Actually, I was just going to go to the earnings themselves today, because when I look at this, the numbers are absolutely head scratching, to be honest with you. I mean, they're supposed to lose 22 cents. They make 21 cents. They lost 52 cents a year ago. I mean, it's just amazing what they've done, John. Matter of fact, they've beat 4 quarters in a row so far. Their volume is only up 31% year over year. So when you look across at almost every metric, and I wasn't even looking at the short interest because I just kept going back to this and looking at it saying, okay, so the earnings beat, they confirmed the guidance, the gross margins, well, they were 30%. Now they're up at 39.4%. I mean, every metric you can look at, they are absolutely crushing it. And I don't know what exactly was the main reason behind it. You were talking about a couple of different things. One of them is the logistics. That's probably a huge one, but it's just amazing. And they did crush it, and they hit 52-week highs at 127 pretty easily this morning.
Yeah, and then they pulled back about $5.
Yeah.
So it gives you an entry point. And by the way, Pete, my dog eats this stuff. It looks like a big thing of Braunschweiger or whatever, liver sausage, because it comes in this long tube like this, and then you just slice off bits of it. It's refrigerated, and as the name implies, it's fresh.
Yeah.
All right. We talked about Bitcoin. We talked about Bitcoin futures and how much interest there is as it rocks to the upside and comes down. When Bitcoin goes up and then down, you know what happens, Pete? They don't sell off the stocks that are tied to Bitcoin. They pull back, but Bitcoin's down a couple percent on the day right now. Meanwhile, CleanSpark, MicroStrategy, MSTR, Mara Blockchain, Marathon, those are all still holding on to at least 2/3 of their gains. Some of them were double-digit gains this morning.
And the interesting thing, John, the options market sure is interested in this. We're seeing some options in Marathon. We're seeing some options in HUT. So certainly that, I think, stands out for me. I think when you look at MicroStrategy, though, that's the one that really does stand out. I mean, Michael Saylor has done an amazing job in the investment side of what he's been doing. And you take a look at that stock today, and it's up at over 1,300 last I looked. I mean, it's made another one of these just gigantic moves, percentage-wise, dollar-wise, however you want to phrase it. But it is amazing. And to your point, John, that's despite the fact that we're seeing Bitcoin with the pop up, then a little bit of a pull back. And, you know, it's interesting how volatile that has become. But those beta names, you talk about the miners, we talk about the miners a lot. those miners certainly are an area that has become very, very interesting to trade, but you've got to navigate it right. You've got to understand why they're moving up or why they're moving down. And it's not always just about the price of Bitcoin. There's a lot of other factors, but certainly price of Bitcoin certainly is a big factor.
Absolutely. And I think it's still a sector you want to watch, and pay attention to Coinbase too, folks, because I think that's the one with some of the most active options in the space, because there are not, of course, options on Bitcoin ETFs yet.
Right.
All right, Pete. Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett does this every year. He, on Saturday, takes over an entire arena. And that's not even big enough for all of the faithful, Pete. They have overflow places where people that can't even see him on the big screen, in that huge arena, go and watch him in a remote viewing spot. I mean, it's crazy. But he is extremely popular. He's done well by a lot of people, and they give him a ton of respect, which he deserves. I'm not going to say anything bad about Mr. Buffett. He did sell 13% of his portfolio that was holding Apple, Pete. Were you surprised by that?
I was a little bit surprised. I think he's probably a little disappointed. I think he's like the rest of us, John. He probably felt like Tim Cook and what's going on in China itself, but also Tim Cook being a little bit late to this whole world of AI. And I say that also with the backdrop of they've made a lot of acquisitions in AI, but the problem is they were all last year, and that's going to take time. And that's the reason they're still a little bit late. But so no, the 13% actually makes some sense to me, John. He also completely got out of Paramount at a loss. He just said, you know what? We didn't see it. We're out of that one. I think this is what stood out for me, though. So Mr. Buffett and Berkshire, they got $188 billion in cash. Now, that's quite a cash hoard. He actually added by saying, I wouldn't be surprised if we're over 200 billion in the not too distant future. So he's still kind of cautious. He's still kind of pulling back just a little bit, John. But as he said, he says, we do not make fatal mistakes, which is a great, great thing to talk about a little bit, because when you see what Buffett's done over his career, and it's a long career, so he's done it for a long period of time, and he's been right far more often than wrong. That's why he stayed away from the fatal mistakes. And you know what? I think he looks at Apple not as a fatal mistake. He looks at it as, well, we maybe hung on a little bit long. They were stopping some of the growth. They weren't getting into China the way that we expected. And that's just a whole process that they've got to go through. So trimming it up, I think that's probably a disciplined decision for them to make. And I think Mr. Buffett, if he says it, John, for the most part, I don't think he's always right, but I think that guy's got a decent enough track record that I'm going to probably listen to him when he speaks.
I always do. And I think you're exactly right, Pete. He also showed the discipline that Pete and I preach about all the time, folks, because Paramount didn't work. He gave it a little bit more time for whatever Skydancer or whatever that other, Larry Ellison's son, his company, to come in. Nobody has been able to push this price up high enough to even get him back to break even. So he finally just said, cut it, move on. Let's get to the next thing and let's do better next time. Right. That's the way you stay at the game a long time. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Pete, normally we'd pull up a video here, but I forgot to send you one today. So that's on me. I had a great one of Anthony Edwards, but I'm sure we'll have some others we can share with you. What do you have for sports today, Pete?
Well, you'd said Anthony Edwards. That's exactly where I was going. How about the Minnesota Timberwolves going on the road? Now, Denver won, for all the people who don't remember from last year. Denver won. They're the champions, right, of the NBA. Absolutely. They are loaded, got a great group of guys. They continue to be great. But the Minnesota Timberwolves went there, John, and just played, and outplayed them towards the very end. And it was absolutely, you got to give it everything to Anthony Edwards. The guy is absolutely magical. We've been talking about it for a long time. We've said, and I've said on a local broadcast here in Minnesota, you better come watch this kid because he is electric. He is basically the closest thing that we have seen, I think, to either Kobe or Michael Jordan. And that's, it's young. It's still young. The guy's 22 years old. Let's be honest. He's been in the NBA now for 4 years. So this guy's got a pretty decent track record already. He's incredible. I think he's got a lot of similarities. I'm not going to say he's Michael Jordan, but even Michael Jordan says, look, I love watching this kid. He plays both ends of the court. He plays without doing load management like a lot of the clowns in the NBA are doing. He wants to play. He wants to kill him. They ask him, hey, what are you going to do? I'm going to go out there and kill him. Well, he's damn good at it, John. Matter of fact, he had some unbelievable scores, but he has a resume that absolutely is unreal. How about this? He's averaging 33 points against Denver. He's averaging 33 points in the postseason. In the fourth quarter, he leads the league in points scored. He's shooting at 69%. He's 57% from three-point land, and he hasn't missed a free throw. I mean, I don't know. How do you do you point to anywhere and say, well, this guy's not, well, he can't, all that. That's not the case. He is living up, and he knows how to rise to the moment. And I'll tell you, it's absolutely amazing to watch. It's been fun to watch for a few years now, and now the rest of the world is getting the opportunity to watch this guy. Everybody's talking about him, not just Michael, but what do you think, John, in terms of where do you place him right now? Because he doesn't have enough of a resume to even close to say Kobe or Michael, but I think there is something to be said about his physique, how he plays, how he takes over games, and the confidence where he wants that last shot and he can make it. I mean, it's amazing what he's done.
Truly amazing, Pete. And he is a powerhouse, an electric guy, a guy that when he sweeps the backboard, sometimes he has to duck to keep from hitting his head as he goes under the backboard, because he's so high up in the air when he's pinning balls against the backboard and so forth. And as good as that is, Pete, the reason I think that they could beat Jokic and the Denver Nuggets is that trade that you talked about that no one else thought they should do. Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
I mean, Rudy had 13 rebounds, double-digit rebounds. You don't often see that against, for one player, of course, to have 13 rebounds against a rebounding machine like Jokic. I mean, the Joker is just an amazing athlete. He gets the ball down low. It's almost impossible to stop him if he does get it down there in the paint. And if he's playing defense, he's coming up with the rebound, but not against Rudy Gobert. Mm-hmm. So 13 rebounds, if they can do that again, please, Pete. And I just think that they are built to take on Denver. And if you take Denver out of this equation, you're going to win it all because I thought they were the ones to beat. And for you to win 106-99, yeah, says a lot about how Minnesota on the road too, Pete. Yeah. On the road.
Well, and I'll tell you, Oklahoma City is going to be a challenge if that's the team. That I'm just throwing it out there. I think they will be who they play next, but they're something special. And our guy Chet Holmgren's not so bad either at a 7-footer who can shoot from anywhere. He can dribble the ball the length of the court, and he can do all that stuff. All right, next up. So you've got another young guy out there who's pretty damn good, John. This guy that you and I were talking about a lot last year, but Ohtani just continues to just be absolutely magnificent. And the Dodgers got the opportunity to play another great team this year right now, record-wise. They were the top two. And you're sitting there going up against Atlanta, right? And Atlanta's a pretty damn good team. They're 20-12. The Dodgers are 23-13. So it gives you an idea. These two are both just powerhouses. We've talked about salary caps in the past with Baltimore and what they've been able to do. These two teams actually pay a hell of a lot of money, but they get it out of their players. And Ohtani, I think, is the guy who's so daggone special. He left the Angels. He came over to the Dodgers. John, here's what he did just the other night. He had 4 hits against Atlanta. One of them was a home run that went 464 feet. 464 feet. It left the bat and was traveling at 111 miles per hour as it was flying out there. So, by the way, that was the second home run of the day. So they go out there and they beat the Braves 4-3. They beat them again 11-2. They beat them again 5-1. So just to give you a little bit of the stats on Ohtani so far this year, he leads the league in batting average. He's tied for the top with home runs, 10 of them. He's got 25 RBIs, 52 hits, which also leads the league. I would say whatever they're paying him, it's probably not enough because this guy puts fans in the stands, number one, and gives you the opportunity to win almost every night that you go out there. And he hasn't been able to pitch. He's not going to pitch this year. But when he's able to do that as well, John, I think the Dodgers made a heck of a good move here. And I think the other folks out there that want to spend money in Major League Baseball, they're probably kicking themselves, whether it's the Mets or the Yankees or whoever. This is a guy you want on your team because he is a great player. And forget all that gambling crap. That's in the past. This is what matters, what he does at the plate. And the guy's amazing.
He is, Pete. And like you said, when you hit a ball 464 feet, what did Kevin Costner say, Pete? The last time I saw something go that far, it had a stewardess on it.
Yeah.
I guess it would be flight attendant now if I want to be politically correct. But wow, yeah, the guy is just amazing. And you've never heard a bad thing said about him, Pete. Outside of that gambling thing, you've never heard a bad thing from his teammates. They love him. They love the way he plays. They love the passion and how seriously he takes the games. So, and he's a big dude, Pete. Yeah. This is not some little guy that's just, all cranked up. This is a big man that is hitting those, and that's what it takes to hit it 464, I guess.
Well, and the amazing thing, John, is he's a lot like Anthony Edwards, where he's just that good and he's better than everybody else, kind of a thing. And I'm not saying he's the greatest of all time, and I'm not saying Anthony Edwards is. It's going to be MJ for a long time. Michael Jordan is the best. He is the GOAT. But it's great to see players like this coming back into the game, right? To see Ohtani. That's why whenever the Angels would come to the Twins, John, I try to go to the games because you got to go see these guys. Anthony Edwards is playing 5 miles down the road from where I live. So you want to go see those kind of players. You and I used to go see MJ all the time, especially when they were going through all those great seasons. I missed the early parts where they struggled more with Detroit, but you and I would go to games when they were the powerhouse, and it's absolutely amazing to watch Michael play in person. I mean, I think he could play now at his age probably better than most of the NBA right now.
That's one of my favorites, Pete, when they say, well, how do you think the Bulls could do against, today's Lakers or today's Denver Nuggets? And he goes, I think we'd win, but I think we'd only win by about 2 or 3 points a game. And then they go, really? And he goes, yeah, but keep in mind, we're all over 60. Boom. Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We'll be broadcasting from here at the CBOE on my end, CBO Global Markets. And Pete will be somewhere undisclosed, I'm sure. But we appreciate all of you joining us. If you'd like to claim that free book, go on over to itsnotanoption.com. That's itsnotanoption.com. Just ask the guys behind me. That's the one they turn to. Itsnotanoption.com. And we will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.